Oh, look, you're sunburned. We should get some aloe on that.
Yeah.
Even though you're like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Like, well, no, your cells are dying.
Well, I mean, I was like, it'll be fine in the sense that I don't think the skin was going to like leave my body. It would eventually recover and I would still have skin. That's sort of what I meant was I'll be fine. It could have been better. I got 5 hours, well, 4 hours and 41 minutes of sleep last night.
That is not enough hours.
No, that's why I did not go to the grocery store this morning because I woke up
Oh,
and was, you know, I stared at the light switch a little too long before I remembered what I'm supposed to do with it, you know? And when that happened, it's like, I should not make purchasing decisions. I should go back to bed. So, you know, that's how I decided
yeah.
not to go to the grocery store last night, is because I was getting a headache. And then I had a headache and I still thought I could go. But then I turned into the wrong parking lot, like 3 miles ahead of where I needed to turn into totally the wrong store. So it was like, okay, no, we're just gonna go straight home because my brain is not, it's not there right now. It is not right. And I would be making bad choices.
I think that's the right decision. I think you did. Yeah, no, you're good. Done good.
So a lot of this is just learning to manage and deal with what your brain hands you. And,
Hmm.
it's not always easy, but I definitely was very conscious of in the past, I would have either just gone to the right store and gotten home and been much worse, or I would have just parked because I was at a King Supers and I meant to go to the Safeway, but I don't know that King Supers that I ended up at. I don't know where everything is. So I think the worst thing I could have done would be to park and go into the store where I don't know where anything is and try to do that and pretend like I hadn't really made a mistake. Like I meant to do that, or just that would have been a disaster. That would have been really, really awful. So, um, I'm trying to deal with what my mind hands me and boss it around when I've got enough tools to do that. So we'll see. 45, maybe by the time I'm 90, I'll have figured it out. Shall we make a podcast?
Yeah, let's make a podcast. Hello and welcome into Gifted Kid, Messy Adult, a neurodiversity podcast, the show where potential went to the eye. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie Michaels. I use she, her.
I am your other host, Jessica Michaels. I use she, they.
And today we are talking about, I guess, giftedness again, once or twice.
Yes, we are talking about somebody else's giftedness, though.
Oh, good.
This article was published first on HuffPost and then on BuzzFeed, sent into us by a listener. And the author is Sophie Boudreau. And the title of her article is I was enrolled in a gifted program as a kid. Years later, I discovered a dark side I never knew about. So I could see why somebody thought Jess and Ellie might like that.
Yeah, that's, I'm not super sure what a wheelhouse is, but it's probably right in there.
Yeah. So, and the author talks about basically in elementary school, she was selected for these AT classes, academically talented, or GT, gifted and talented, um, courses. And being in that program was really great because they got to pursue a lot of self directed learning. And that was something for a while that she really enjoyed. Um, the teachers were really engaged, educators, as she says, and wanting them to do well. But there were some downsides, and we're going to get into the numbers in a little bit. But even as she was going through the program, she learned that um, one, if there was a topic that she didn't latch onto right away or something that she didn't understand, she would avoid asking for help because she was gifted. So she shouldn't need help with anything. And then she also felt like later on that when she would get something other than an A in a non gifted class, that would really affect her. And she would need to be reminded, that she was still smart. And then, just like we talk about with a lot of us, the potential that she felt that she had and that she was told she had was something that really became ultimately burdensome when she didn't know what to do, or when college didn't go by like a breeze. It really negatively affected her mentally. So that's just some of the highlights in here. And I know we've both read this. Was there anything in this article that really struck you, or that you felt you connected to more than anything else in here?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I say it at the top of every show, like, you have so much potential. You can do anything and blah, 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 blah. No, I can't. And if I can do the thing, I can't necessarily do it on demand. Like, I mean, we've gone over it a million times. The neurodivergent brain is motivated by different things. And if I'm not interested, if it's not urgent, if it's not novel, if I don't enjoy it, it's the same part of your brain that keeps you from sticking your arm in a wood chipper, telling me I can't do this paperwork. It will cause me harm and pain.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you have all of this potential. You should be doing great. Should I? Can I not be bad at some things, please? That would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that stung.
it she really kind of hammers home this idea that it's just assumed you're going to be excellent at everything.
Hmm.
And when you're not, that really takes a toll on your mental health and things that are absolutely normal, like not being great at a hobby the first time you try it, or not understanding something, or not, as you said, being able to accomplish something, perfectly and quickly. It affects your mental health, not just to the normal point of where a failure might affect you, but our resilience is often zero. And so that can really just destroy you. A little thing can set you off on a path because you just don't have the resources to absorb and deal with and move on from any type of challenge or setback. Totally removing things like autism, ADHD, etc. from the equation. So yeah,
Hmm.
that was, I get it. I get it. Does it make you
Hmm.
feel better when you read something like this though? Or how does it make you feel when you read somebody else's experience with something like this?
Kind of sad and annoyed. Like, oh look, it happened to more people. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would like for no one else to have experienced that. That'd be super cool. But apparently, no.
Mm-hmm.
Other people also stepped on that rake. And in fact, our path was strewn about with rakes by adults who were supposed to know better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
she specifically says, in the decades since, I've drawn connections between my most plaguing anxieties and my early education. It's taken practice to feel more comfortable with accepting professional criticism or admitting when I'm not sure how to do something at work. I see how my G&T years merged self-worth with accolades and grades, and I feel sad for the younger version of myself, along with other formerly gifted peers who internalized so many false measures of success. At times, adulthood feels like an ongoing battle to remind myself that I'm a valuable, worthy person, regardless of outward achievements. Yeah.
Hmm.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And it hits the the being unable to be like, oh, I'm bad at this. I should learn more how to do this. Sometimes that happens entirely internally and not even like someone else saying, oh, you should be good at this. Because like, I mean, I'm good at lots of things. And even you're like, you're good at everything you try. I'm good enough. I'm decent. Like, I'm not necessarily good at making bread, but I can make bread. I know
Y-
enough to know that I'm okay at it, but like there's a bunch of
Your
video stuff that I've never learned how to do because my brain just won't let me.
your requirement of what it would take to be called good is so high. To me, the fact that you can bake things and occasionally come out with an edible product would be good, you know? Like, but to you, every experiment has to be of a certain level of quality to count that as good. And okay isn't it? You sort of want to be good, as good as somebody who maybe has done this for years or for their whole life. And to me and to the other people who say, "Oh, you're good at this," we're saying, "Well, you're certainly better than what I am likely to do." And you tried it. I mean, you tried it, you produced something that's so cool. It's something that we like eating. That's great. And sure, are there other levels of things? Absolutely, but you don't have to be at these upper echelons or at these expert levels for it to be good. But to you, okay, I guess this is how you described it. Like that is not good enough for you, but for everybody else, that you come in contact with, that's what we think it's great. We're super impressed. And if you do better or more, I mean, that's even more amazing. But what you already do is really, really, really impressive. You're the only one who does not see that.
I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. It just keeps going back to the scene of Into the Spider-Verse with Peter Parker telling somebody about Miles, like, they can do incredible things. I can't do it on command. They can't do it on command.
But you can do it at all.
Yeah, but in the sense of like so much stuff about being neurodivergent is that like neurodivergent people function great when they're under mass amounts of stress, like having their leg in a bear trap. So here's 10 ways to simulate having your leg in a bear trap.
Yeah.
I don't want to have my leg in a bear trap.
I get it. I get it. I mean, and to me, what's interesting about a lot of this, you look at the academic success that a lot of us had at a really young age and how that is something that we have trouble replicating often into the future. I mean, as a gifted kid, and she talks about it in her article, how her learning was largely self directed. You could follow those whims. And so a lot of the success came when she was in an environment that she could listen to her brain and do the things that would support any type of neurodivergence, whether it's just giftedness or whether it's ADHD or autism, whatever. And so I think it does show that you can have these successes when you do not necessarily push your brain into a stressed state, but when you do the things that help you go more along with what your brain naturally wants to do, with some guardrails, maybe. Um, so to me it's kind of about recreating a lot of those circumstances that we had in those environments where we learned what we wanted to learn when we learned it, or we were able to lean into the things that we were naturally good at. There wasn't a ton of stress and pressure. So it's how do we give ourselves that surplus of spoons to be more resilient when challenges do arise by saving them wherever we can in any other area of our lives, is the closest I can think of as to how we recreate some of that success.
Hmm. I don't know. My program wasn't terribly self-guided. Like there was really no like added autonomy. It was literally just like, okay, you're in third grade. Here's a sixth grade book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I have no one to talk about this with.
Yeah, she talks about, the first time that somebody said, here's a chapter book, pick out a chapter book that's more aligned with your reading level. Um, I always remember teachers, even then, even in the gifted program, challenging me on what I did read. They'd say, you didn't read that, or you didn't read that fast. And it's like, but I did. Why don't you ask me some questions about it? And I will tell you because I did read it. So that was annoying. But uh yeah, I think it really depended a lot on your program and the people that directed the program and what it meant. There definitely is some just, hey, because we had the high school experience where we were taking high school classes. Um, so just, hey, you're in elementary school, do this. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. So I don't know, but you seem to survive it okay. And you seem to, I mean, you do read at a really high level of comprehension very
No,
quickly.
I listen at a really high level of comprehension. I read
Ah,
very poorly. I'm
gotcha.
pretty sure there's some dyslexia in there because like,
Gotcha.
and I had never really known all of the things that dyslexia could be. And always I heard like, oh, the letters kind of like move and try to elude you. I'm like, well, that's not at all what I have. I have the thing where my eye just wants to jump down a paragraph, and I have to force myself to finish reading this sentence before I move to the next one. And it's just really, really, really hard. But if I listen to a thing, yeah, no, great, I got that.
And they kind of allude to some of that in here that um, the requirements for a lot of these programs, let me see. In 1998, many American schools were provided with official K through 12 standards for so-called gifted education by the Natural Association of Gifted Children. While the NAGC first promoted advanced academic programming in the 50s, its work there in the late 80s and 90s represented a more structured approach to educating students who were found to be gifted, which is the top 10% academically. The K through 12 gifted education standards were preceded by the passage of the Jacob Javits Gifted and Talented Act in 1988, which secured funding to orchestrate coordinated programs of scientifically based research, demonstration projects, innovative strategies, and similar activities that build and enhance the ability of elementary and secondary schools to meet the special educational needs of gifted and talented students. And so both of those, well, for me, I started school in 85. So that would have been before either one of these came into play. But I was pulled into the gifted program with this act was had been passed and they knew it was going to be something that was coming. So I started my first gifted class in 87. So this was already kind of in the wind, but it hadn't really been solidified. I was kind of one of the first ones based upon this research that was decided. And a lot of that was done in reaction to, from what I understand, and I look forward to being corrected by any of our listeners, a lot of this sentiment was the fact that we were kind of behind as there was starting to be the sense that we in America might not be um, educating our smartest kids the best compared to the performance of other countries. So there
Oh,
was this
good. Good thing we
idea,
fixed that.
Yeah, that there, that there were people who we could push further and faster, and we weren't fully into the let's, make every one of our kids study like we understand our limited understanding of what like Japanese kids go through. Wasn't quite at its fervor, but it was sort of beginning there, which is interesting because another thing that she points to was that the NAGC defines gifted pupils as those who demonstrate outstanding levels of aptitude, defined as an exceptional ability to reason and learn, or competence, documented performance or achievement in the top 10% or rarer in one or more domains. It seems inevitable that many kids would be excluded from gifted education for factors beyond their control. Do you want to guess who might have been excluded based upon factors outside of their control? Any guess?
Poor and or brown people?
Yeah, yeah. Non-white students, socioeconomically disadvantaged kids, girls, and those that were classified as English language learners, so non-native speakers, are disproportionately excluded from gifted and talented programs. And that is something that was identified in a 2016 book, Engaging and Challenging Gifted Students, Tips for Supporting Extraordinary Minds in Your Classroom by Jenny Grant Rankin. There's a 2016 study that found that Black students are 50% less likely to be considered for gifted and talented programs than their white counterparts, even when both groups recorded similar standardized test scores. And I was thinking about this in my experience because part of it is I lived in a very small rural community. And so I don't remember I remember the makeup of this whole student body in both schools that I went to be overwhelmingly white. I don't remember any non-white students at my first school, but I was only there for kindergarten and first grade. So who knows? My world was my little teeny tiny little classroom. Um, when I went to my second school, that is the first time that I had any non-white peers, but none of them were in the gifted program. And it does seem odd now. I didn't clock it at the time that probably the only classroom that had no Black kids, that had no Hispanic kids, would have been my gifted classroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrible.
It's a very American thing too, of like, hey, look, a large amount of people are, not thriving or getting the services they need. Let's focus on these 10% who are doing really good and see if they can't do really gooder.
Right.
I'm fine, man. Like, go see to the underserved and like underprivileged people, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wish I knew more because I don't about kind of what was going on in the economy in the community at that time. Plus, it wasn't my community. They bused me to another community for me to be able to be a part of this program. But it does seem strange that in pulling kids, because there's one thing to say, okay, this school just didn't have as many non-white kids, but they pulled us from other schools. They pulled us from across districts. That's how I got there. So you're telling me that you're pulling kids from across districts and there's no gifted Black student? Really?
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
can't be
Mm-hmm.
true. I don't believe that. Even in a district that was overwhelmingly white, it doesn't make sense that the gifted and talented kids were only white kids. It makes sense that the gifted kid program would be overwhelmingly white, but not totally. Come on. That's insane. That's ridiculous. And I don't know what was at play, if it was, I don't know what was in play exactly to make that happen, but systemic racism and probably overt racism had to have been a part of that somewhere.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know how blatant it was, I don't know. Um, and that is really, I mean, it pisses me off to look at, what makes me mad that I didn't notice it or realize it or ask better questions when I was, because even in fifth grade, I could have asked, why are there none of these people in, that I interact with? So clearly they're they're around. Why are none of them here with me? It frustrates me that even as a kid, I didn't ask that type of question. I feel
Well, as a
like
fifth grader, you have lots of power over socioeconomic things and could have clearly done something to fix it.
I don't, I'm not going to hold myself that responsible for not fixing the world, but I was very, I sponsored I was in the paper for starting a food drive when we were, when I was younger, but I didn't know, it's not like I knew homeless people. I just knew that I had heard that homelessness was a thing and some people needed food. And so I wanted to make sure that people got food. So I knew enough to do that, even though I wasn't faced specifically with that challenge, you know, in my face. Like, it wasn't like there was, we didn't have homeless people that parents had to talk to their kids about, in a rural community that I was in back in the 80s. Um, so I clearly had the capacity to question and to make assessments, even without all of the evidence. So that is either my failure to ask better questions, or if I had to be introduced to homelessness because I didn't see it necessarily, I should have been introduced to the idea of racism earlier than I was to be able to see it and ask questions and get mad about it. Because I was a smart kid, I was a gifted kid. I could
You
have
were a fifth
figured
grader.
out that that was bad, you know. I don't know. Not
That's
that
a massive systemic problem. Like, I'm not sure what exactly, like, you were heavily parentified at that point, but I don't think anybody would really listen to you on the school board or like the busing
Oh no,
program.
nobody would have listened to me. Absolutely not. Nobody would have listened to me. But it took me so long to identify that as a problem that it's frustrating to me, because it wasn't
Mm.
until probably post college that I started to look at, well, what was my experience like, and what compared to other kids, and what, like, it just, and it's not that I didn't think about other people and other perspectives. I just didn't consider that perspective. The range of experiences I considered were still white experiences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
That was the experiences that you were exposed to. Like, then as adults, we learned and got better, right?
I would have appreciated in a gifted program if I had had a little bit more of that and maybe a little bit less of dissecting a frog in second grade.
Mm. Yeah, I never had to do that.
I had to do it
Wait,
multiple
second
times.
grade? You had to digest a frog in second grade?
Yep. And then a
Ooh,
fetal pig in third grade.
ooh. Yeah, no, we got like a plastic thing that was like layers of like plastic diagrams of bits of a frog, and you would like take a layer off, and they're like, this is cheaper and more ethical than actually cutting up frogs. And I was, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I had already done it so much in elementary school that when I got to junior high and they dissected frogs and pigs, I was like, I got this. I'm old hat at this. This is no problem.
Mm.
My program was overwhelmingly boys. There were not, as nearly as many girls. That continued when I moved. and was in, honors classes. It was more boys than girls. It was almost exclusively white. Um, so these are trends that didn't just affect my little rural community. That was something that followed even when I moved to a city environment. So, um, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And, it's frustrating for a lot of us. I think the thing that I identified within here in this article is when she talked about being a big fish in a small pond and
Mm-hmm.
then going to college and now everybody's like you. The one thing that made you special is no longer special. It's the minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I didn't have the thing where it's like, oh, everyone's like me. It's like, oh no, everyone's way better than me. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You
maybe
guys
that's
got
a
here through like hard work. I got here through just being kind of good at stuff. Oh, I know
yeah,
this takes hard work, and I don't know how to do that.
that's a much better way to describe it. As I went from being where whatever I was born with just sort of granted me access to things to an environment where, oh yeah, you people have skills. You can
Mm-hmm.
do something about this and you know what to do. And if this doesn't just work for me because it works, I am in so much trouble because it's never happened to me before that it didn't work. And when it doesn't, I have no skills to fix that. So I went from being the top of the top and hearing about it constantly to being the bottom of the bottom and not knowing what to do and not knowing how to fix it and having no abilities to deal with it. And of course now we know that was unmedicated ADHD, untreated autism, in addition to having these gifted kid challenges. Again, I think in 100 years we're going to look back and realize that these things are much more interconnected than we even think they are now. But there was a whole lot going on, but the only assumption I could make, the only conclusion I could come to is that it was my fault.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still think that about mine. Like, clearly, I was the one it was happening to, so I was the one who should deal with it, right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the one that was happening to, so I should be the one to deal with it because everybody else is fine. So everybody else is handling it. Everybody must be experiencing the same thing. I am only they know how to deal with it. They do it better. They do it right. It's my failure. So I'm not going to ask for help because even if I did, what would I ask for? I mean, it's just so much internalized, just that we gotta dig through. So, but that's why we're here. That's why we have this podcast and why we like reading stuff like this. And lets us know we're not the only ones out there. It is not our fault. We're okay. And you know, it wasn't our fault then either.
For a given value of okay, you know.
For a given value of okay. Yeah. I mean, it's maybe messy, but that's okay. It's okay to be messy. It is okay to be messy. And it's okay to ask for help to unmess certain things and to identify areas of struggle and problems and challenges, and mistakes are fine. It's how you move on. And so, yeah, a lot of the stuff we should have learned when we were 6. But if we're learning it when we're 45, still learning it, and it's okay. It's all okay.
Well, we just got to it eventually.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, on that flimsily hopeful note, I think that'll just about wrap it up for this episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult. Just where can more people find out about you?
Well, people can find out about us at our GoFundMe link, which we will include in the show notes. If you want to support something in Pride, we are a queer couple who could certainly use the support. Got an MRI on my knee that I would really like to get. So feel free to check that out. You can also come find out about all things neurodiversity at coachjessicamichaels.com. come and sign up for a free consultation to find out if neurodiversity coaching could be something that would help you.
Well, if you like our show, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And for any other information, email us your questions, comments, or just outright praise to giftedkidmessyadult@gmail.com. And so until next time, take care of each other out there.
Bye.